Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my Mixed Media Frenzy YouTube hop layout. This is the layout we've all been given to be inspired by. It's from a blog called HappyMel'Scraps. So I've been just looking at the placement of her paper, paint and embellishments, and I decided I would use some crepe paper and particularly some Maggie Holmes if I could, and to make this page. So I'm just choosing the paper that I want on the left of the page, and as I've already chosen my photograph, I already had it printed but I wanted to scrap it, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity. I'm going to keep it square rather than cut it down, so it's slightly different to the one we're being inspired by, but I'm okay with that. So the paper on the left I think is Open Book by Crepe Paper, so that's a little bit old, but I think it's 2014 by the look of the strip, but that's okay. It was in my stash and I wanted to get it used. I've also pulled out my crepe paper marigold. I think this is the chipboard that you're looking at now. I think the colours are very similar, so I think they would be perfect to go with it. So I'm just having a look what bits and pieces I've got that go in the similar colourways. If you look at the piece of paper on the left, it's got some yellowy goldy colours and also some pale pinks in it. So I've also found some journaling spots that I've at the moment popped behind the photograph. This is just me thinking out loud really, gathering all the supplies. It's not necessarily how it's going to end up, but I like to see what's on offer that I could use that I've got in this stash. So I'm just trimming this tag. I think there's a tag, if you can see in the original up in the top right corner. I tend to keep a copy of the original just to keep referring back to, just to be inspired by. There's a tag behind the photograph in that original, so I think I can see myself going with something similar. I really like these flowers too. I think I can imagine me using them, and maybe the chipboard title. So I've put all those aside, and I've got out some paints in some yellows and like a peachy colour. I've also got some white and some gold there, and I'm applying this acrylic paint without mixing it with any water and with a dry brush straight to the white cardstock and the pattern paper. I have to be honest, I was a little bit nervous about doing this, but I was thinking it's only paper, it's only cardstock. I've got more of the pattern paper, I've only cut that strip. If I really wanted to go back and do it again, and hey, what is there to lose? So I just went for it. And I was really surprised how little, because there's no water being mixed with the paint, it didn't make the paper buckle. So I was actually really pleased. It also dried much quicker than I thought it would. So once I start, I actually get a little bit more experimental, adding more colours into it. And I just kept offering up the photograph just to see if I got the placement where I wanted it to be. So once that was dry, I've come in with a stencil. I've got those like makeup type brushes for applying inks that I'm using there. Gives quite a soft approach, and I'm using this dotty stencil to add some yellowy gold over the top. At the present it's very subtle, but I quite like the effect that it's giving it, and it's just softening the edges of the paint as well and filling in some of those gaps. So I've also got a word stencil there that I was thinking of using, but at this stage I think I just used the dotty one. So I've used it on the pattern paper and on the cardstock side. So I brought back in the embellishments that I chose at the very beginning, deciding which ones I think might be perfect for this. Start by putting the journaling spots behind the photograph, and I'll just giving the edges a bit of a rough up with my distresser there from Prima, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a pile behind the photographs, just with some little edges sticking out. I don't want them to make them too big because I don't want to cover too much of the paint effect that I've got on the background, so they're just very close to the photograph. So I've tucked in a couple of tags there, a mustardy one and a green one. I think they look really good together there, and I like the touch of green as well with everything, so I might be adding a bit more green in as I go. I've swapped the title for the word together, but a vellum one that was also in my stash, in the crepe paper stash, so I think you can see through that better, so you can still see the paint and the ink. So now I'm just working my way around the photograph, putting some bits and pieces, some ephemera, there's some gold leaves cut from the vellum from the marigold range, just tucking bits and pieces in so that I can see what I like. There's even a vellum rose there. and I think it's really starting to take shape. So I've had a look in the rest of my stash, see if there's any bits and pieces, some neutrals that might be useful, and I've added a cork heart, which I think I may stick to the photograph, and I've got this bow and I move it around the page repeatedly, but it actually never makes the final cut. So off camera I've stuck the photo and the journaling spots together, and I've come in with this word stencil. I'm using a pink to just add another layer to the background. Even though it's like a script stencil, you can't read the words, so that's fine. So I can just add little bits of it in places just to add another colour. So I quite like the way that shows it. It's very difficult to see, and hopefully you'll see it better in the close-ups. So I look at positioning my photograph down. The tags are already stuck in as well, so hopefully it should just be the embellishment that's left. So I start by adding the flowers underneath the photograph. Off camera I've also trimmed down the vellum word. It had a big outline to it, so I thought that was quite distracting, so by hand I just trimmed it with some little scissors. I'm also looking at adding a flower and a pennant at the top, which is similar to the original. I think there's a further at the top of the page. I really love the gold vellum flowers. I think, gold vellum leaves from the 12 by 12 sheet. I cut out the whole thing last time I used the Marigold range, so I've got loads of those in my stash, so I'll definitely be tucking 2 or 3 of those in under the flowers and around the photograph. I find that when a range isn't new anymore, I mix it with the others, so even though these are all crate, and there's 2 different ranges here, I keep them all in the same box now, so I don't always know which embellishments are which I don't really mind, but I do quite like to keep the actual manufacturer papers together for some reason. I think it's because the colours seem to go really well. I mean, you would never know that this was at least 2 ranges there, maybe 3, and I think that works really well. So I brought in some gold thread that I thought I'd add behind some of the flowers. I'm finding it quite tricky. I don't know how people like Missy managed to make it look so easy, but I'm giving it another go under that flower, and I'm going to do some more at the top. It's funny how sometimes the smallest things are the hardest things to do. Apologies for seeing the top of my head. I'm still fighting with this thread. So once that's in, I start to look at what else I can add. I've put a little bit of thread obviously in the tags as well. It's 2 different shades of colours to go with the range. So I just bring in the original again just to have another look, see if there's anything else I want to add. I'm going to stick that title down. I just add a bit of wet glue behind the black of the word, so you can't actually really see it through the vellum once I've added it. So now I think I've got all the bits and pieces stuck down. I actually want to add some gold splatters, but actually I hadn't shaken the paint, so I had to start again and shake the paint to get it to mix properly. So I've added some water to the gold, I've covered my photograph, and I'm going to add some gold splats around. They're only very small, but they give a really nice iridescent shine to go with the vellum leaves that are poking out around the photo. So I just add a little bit more water. I want some bigger splats really, so I actually fake some and put some little puddles of gold on the layout. This is the last thing that I'm going to do to this page, so I'm going to leave it on my desk overnight to dry so that these can actually soak into the cardstock and be fine by tomorrow. So a few little splatters. So just coming up is a full image of the finished layout and some peeks of it too. Please hop round to the rest of the Mixed Media Frenzy ladies and see how they interpreted this layout. If you like what you see, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up, and I hope to see you again here soon. Bye for now.